The church in Birmingham was filled with a warm, inviting light as sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation as people gathered, chatting softly among themselves. Rows of wooden pews were nearly full, and a sense of community enveloped the congregation. Families sat together, children fidgeting while their parents exchanged hopeful glances. At the front of the church stood a simple yet elegant pulpit where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was expected to speak. His presence brought a palpable energy to the room. People admired him not just for his powerful speeches but for his unwavering commitment to justice and equality. Many had traveled long distances just to hear him share his vision of hope and change. As the service began, hymns filled the air, resonating with messages of faith and unity. The congregation sang with fervor, their voices blending into one harmonious chorus. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of reverence and hope. Everyone felt that they were part of something greater than themselves. Dr. King's arrival was met with warm applause and cheers, reflecting how deeply he inspired those around him. As he took his place at the pulpit, there was an unspoken understanding that today's sermon would be special. People leaned in closer, eager to absorb every word he would share. Yet before he could begin speaking, Dr. King glanced out at the crowd and noticed a familiar face in the balcony, Jerome Clark, a young man who seemed lost in his thoughts, tears streaming down his cheeks. This sight stirred something within Dr. King, prompting him to step away from the pulpit for a moment, leaving the congregation buzzing with curiosity about what might happen next. As Dr. King stepped away from the pulpit, a hush fell over the congregation, their eyes fixed on him with a mix of confusion and intrigue. The energy in the room shifted from anticipation to concern, raising unspoken questions about why their beloved leader had suddenly left. Whispers filled the air as people exchanged glances, wondering what could possibly cause Dr. King to depart just before delivering his much-anticipated sermon. His footsteps echoed softly against the wooden floor as he made his way to the balcony. The contrast of his composed demeanor against the powerful emotions swirling below added an air of mystery to his departure. In a moment that felt both fleeting and profound, he crossed the threshold between leader and fellow human being, showcasing his deep connection to those around him. When Dr. King reached Jerome Clark, he saw the young man wrapped in sorrow and solitude, an image that tugged at his heart. It was a moment of vulnerability, not just for Jerome but for Dr. King as well. As they engaged in quiet conversation, there was an understanding that transcended words. They were connected by shared struggles and an unshakable bond of humanity. Meanwhile, in the church below, the congregation watched, their hearts heavy with concern but also filled with hope, knowing that Dr. King cared deeply for individuals like Jerome. Every passerby sensed that something significant was unfolding just out of their sight, creating an invisible thread between them all. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. King turned and headed back toward the pulpit, carrying something profound with him, an extra layer of emotion and insight that was about to shape his sermon into something altogether extraordinary. Little did they know how this moment would transform not just his message but also their hearts and minds. Jerome Clark sat in the balcony, his heart heavy and his mind racing with thoughts that felt too big to handle. At 29, he had already faced many challenges in life, but today felt particularly overwhelming. Surrounded by the melodies of hymns and the warmth of fellow congregants, he still felt strangely isolated, as if an invisible barrier separated him from the joy that enveloped the rest of the church. Tears streamed down Jerome's face, not just because of sorrow but also from a sense of hopelessness. He had recently lost a family member to violence in their community, leaving him grappling with feelings of anger and despair. The weight of his grief was suffocating, making it hard to focus on the service below. Each note sung by the choir and each cheerful laugh from others only deepened his sense of loneliness. Jerome looked around at the faces in the crowd below him, seeing hope reflected there that he couldn't quite feel within himself. He longed for connection but felt trapped in his own pain, wishing someone could understand what he was going through. As he leaned against the railing, the worries spun endlessly in his mind, thoughts about his future, questions about justice, and uncertainty dimmed his spirit. Then came Dr. King's entrance. The encouraging words from the pulpit usually brought solace to thousands, today they felt like a distant echo for Jerome. But when Dr. King's gaze shifted toward him and their eyes met, it sparked a shimmer of recognition between the two souls, the acknowledgement of struggle and resilience. In that moment before their conversation began, Jerome sensed that this was an opportunity for understanding, an unexpected lifeline thrown into the depths of his sorrow. Little did he know how much this encounter would change both their lives, ushering in a light amid seemingly boundless darkness. As Dr. King approached Jerome, the heavy atmosphere of grief seemed to lift just slightly. They exchanged a few quiet words before the conversation blossomed into something deeper. Jerome spoke of the pain that had enveloped his life since losing his family member. The raw emotion in his voice reflected how deeply the loss had affected him, making him feel lost in a world that felt increasingly dark. Dr. King listened intently, nodding in understanding as Jerome poured out his heart. He acknowledged the anger and despair that often followed such tragedies, reminding Jerome that it was okay to feel overwhelmed. In that moment, Dr. King shared stories of his own struggles, revealing how loss and adversity had shaped his journey as a leader and as a person. He spoke about hope in the face of despair, emphasizing that even during the darkest times, there was always a light waiting to be found. "Your pain is real, Jerome," he said gently, "but remember that you are not alone in this fight. Together, we can find strength even when we feel weak." This reassurance resonated deeply with Jerome, who began to feel a glimmer of possibility amidst his sorrow. The conversation flowed between them like a cathartic release, weaving together themes of love, community, and resilience. Dr. King encouraged Jerome to embrace his emotions but also to channel them into action, be it through community service or advocacy for change, and to honor his loved one's memory by making a difference. As they spoke quietly, time seemed to fade away, and the noise from the church below became a distant echo. When Dr. King finally rose to return to the pulpit, Jerome felt a renewed sense of hope blooming within him, a feeling that perhaps he could transform his grief into something meaningful. This exchange would not only inform Dr. King's upcoming sermon but would also forever change how Jerome viewed his path forward. As Dr. King turned to return to the pulpit, he carried with him the weight of their conversation and the transformation it had sparked within him. His encounter with Jerome Clark filled him with a profound sense of empathy and urgency, altering his mindset as he prepared to deliver the sermon. The familiar themes of justice and equality now fused with deeper emotions, grief, hope, and resilience, reflecting not just the general struggle but the specific pain of individuals like Jerome. In that intimate exchange, Dr. King recognized the power of personal stories in shaping his messages. He realized that the strength of his words depended on their connection to real lives, the joys and trials faced by those in the pews who looked to him for guidance. The passion ignited by Jerome's vulnerability would push Dr. King to speak not only as a leader but as a fellow traveler on life's challenging journey. Pencil poised above paper, he began to rethink his speech. Instead of merely addressing the crowd, he envisioned speaking to each individual spirit, especially those who felt lost or marginalized. He wanted them to realize that their pain was valid and that there was hope even in despair. As he mounted the steps back to the pulpit, Dr. King felt a surge of energy coursing through him. The initial nervousness gave way to conviction. He was ready to pour out everything he just learned from Jerome into his words, a call for action, a reminder of shared humanity. He stepped into view, heart racing as the congregation held its breath in anticipation. With every word that flowed from his lips, Dr. King aimed to uplift those struggling while weaving together themes of love and community. This sermon would not just be another speech, it would resonate deeply with the hearts that needed it most, transforming grief into strength and sorrow into hope. As Dr. King stood at the pulpit, a hush fell over the church, all eyes focused on him with anticipation. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the emotions swirling within him after his conversation with Jerome. The familiar cadence of his voice rang out with an unmistakable urgency, weaving together threads of sorrow and hope that resonated in the hearts of everyone present. He began by sharing a story of perseverance, recalling moments of struggle in the face of loss and violence. His words echoed through the sanctuary as he spoke about those who felt abandoned by society, like Jerome had felt just moments before. "We must acknowledge our pain," he declared passionately. "But we cannot let that pain define us. From grief can rise hope, from despair can emerge action." The congregation leaned in closer, captivated not only by his words, but by the depth of feeling behind them. Dr. King shared insights about transforming personal suffering into collective strength, urging those listening to remember that they were part of something larger, a community bound together by shared experiences and mutual support. As he continued, he looked out across the audience and made eye contact with individuals throughout the crowd, each gaze a reminder of their struggles, their dreams, and their resilience. The sermon transformed into a tapestry woven from stories and emotions that reached each person's spirit. Every time he spoke about love or unity, it felt as if he were pulling from his conversation with Jerome, fueling him with an electric connection to their shared humanity. When Dr. King concluded his sermon, a wave of hope washed over the congregation. Applause erupted but was accompanied by tears, some from joy, others from the release of pent-up sorrow. They left feeling empowered and understood, knowing they could channel their grief into purpose and action. That day's message was extraordinary not just because it was spoken by Dr. King but because it came from a place of genuine connection, his heart intertwined with theirs through Jerome's story of pain and resilience. As Jerome listened to Dr. King's sermon, a powerful transformation began to take place within him. The words that flowed from the pulpit struck him like a beacon of light piercing through his darkness. The themes of hope and resilience resonated deeply, reminding him that he was not alone in his suffering. With each passionate statement made by Dr. King, Jerome felt the weight of his grief lifting, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. The connection he had felt with Dr. King earlier began to blossom into something even more significant. He realized that the pain he carried was not just his own, it was part of a larger narrative shared by countless others in the congregation. This realization sparked a shift in his spirit. He no longer viewed himself as a solitary figure lost in sorrow but as part of a vibrant community bound together by collective struggles and hopes. As Dr. King spoke of channeling grief into action, Jerome felt a surge of determination rise within him. Thoughts began swirling in his mind, ideas about how he could honor his loved one's memory by making a difference in their community. Perhaps he could organize efforts to support those affected by violence, or reach out to others who shared similar experiences. The possibilities felt endless, and for the first time in a long while, he saw a path forward. When the sermon concluded, applause erupted throughout the church, but for Jerome, it sounded different, like a celebration of life rather than just an acknowledgement of loss. He left the balcony with a lighter heart and an invigorated spirit, eager to take steps toward healing and action. The encounter with Dr. King had sparked an inner flame that would guide him through his grief and toward meaningful change, transforming sorrow into strength. As Dr. King concluded his sermon, the atmosphere in the church was electric, charged with a mix of emotions that rippled through the congregation. Faces were illuminated with tears of both sorrow and joy, as listeners processed the powerful message they had just heard. It was clear that Dr. King's words had struck a chord, resonating deeply within each individual present. Many in the congregation could relate to Jerome's story, stories of loss, hardship, and yearning for change. A mother wept quietly in her pew, recalling her own struggles with violence in her neighborhood. A young man sitting next to her clenched his fists, feeling the urgency for action rise within him as he absorbed Dr. King's call for community support and resilience. The shared experience of grief became a collective bond among those gathered. People exchanged glances and silent nods, recognizing their interconnectedness as members of the same community facing similar battles. It was a moment of unity where personal pain transformed into a shared mission to uplift one another. After Dr. King spoke about channeling grief into hope and action, murmurs of agreement began circulating through the crowd. Some members clutched their loved ones' hands tighter, while others whispered promises to honor those they had lost by working toward justice and understanding in their community. As they filed out of the church, many engaged in conversations about what they could do collectively to bring about change. Ideas flowed freely, organizing support groups for those affected by violence, or initiating outreach programs for youth in their neighborhoods. The seeds of action were planted that day, fueled by Dr. King's heartfelt sermon. In this shared space of healing and hope, the congregation felt empowered not only by Dr. King's words but also by Jerome's story, a reminder that within their struggles lay the strength to create a brighter future together. The impact of that day would ripple through their lives long after they left the church, igniting a spark of hope that promised transformation and unity in their community. As the echoes of Dr. King's sermon lingered in the air, the lasting themes of resilience, love, and understanding became deeply rooted in the hearts of everyone present. His powerful message served as a reminder that even in the most difficult times, hope could be found and nurtured. Dr. King emphasized that pain and struggle are part of the human experience, but it is how we respond to these challenges that defines our potential for growth and healing. He reiterated that love holds a transformative power capable of overcoming despair. By embracing empathy and compassion, individuals can foster connections that lead to collective strength. The audience was inspired to recognize their shared humanity, encouraging them to reach out not just for their own healing but for the healing of others as well. Understanding emerged as another crucial theme during his address. Dr. King urged the congregation to listen to the stories of those around them, to truly hear the struggles and triumphs they had faced. This kind of understanding would build bridges among people, cultivating a community where everyone felt valued and supported. The recognition that they were not alone in their grief was liberating. It turned individual sorrow into a shared journey toward healing. As attendees left the church on that transformative day, they carried with them an enriched perspective on how to navigate life's adversities. Many members made silent vows to carry Dr. King's ideals into their lives, nurturing an environment filled with love and support for one another. In this way, Dr. King's words transcended the moment, embedding themselves in the minds and hearts of those who listened. They understood that together, they could create a movement built on resilience and unity, an enduring legacy born from shared pain and mutual compassion that would echo through their actions long after they exited the sanctuary. The experiences shared within those walls would continue to inspire efforts for change and foster hope in their community for years to come. The intimate moment between Dr. King and Jerome Clark served as a powerful reminder of the vital role empathy plays in leadership and community support, particularly during challenging times. In a world often marked by division and isolation, Dr. King's decision to step away from the pulpit demonstrated that true leadership goes beyond delivering speeches. It involves connecting with individuals on a personal level. This act of compassion was not just about reaching out to Jerome. It resonated throughout the congregation, highlighting the importance of understanding one another's struggles. By taking the time to listen to Jerome's pain, Dr. King showcased how leaders can harness empathy to inspire others, encouraging them to confront their own challenges while fostering a sense of belonging and shared experience within the community. As attendees reflected on this poignant exchange, they were reminded that everyone carries burdens that can feel overwhelming when faced alone. However, through communal support and understanding, these burdens can be transformed into sources of strength. The congregation felt empowered to extend their compassion toward one another, recognizing that they could uplift each other in times of distress. Dr. King's sermon became a collective call to action. It emphasized that empathy should guide their responses to hardship and loss. The stories shared in that sacred space highlighted how love and connection could create powerful networks of support, inspiring individuals to work together toward healing and change. Ultimately, this experience taught everyone present that personal connections can ignite movements for social change. As they left the church, they carried with them not only Dr. King's message but also the spirit of empathy he embodied, a spirit that would continue to influence their actions long after they exited those doors. In moments of difficulty, they would remember that by standing together in compassion and understanding, they could forge a brighter future for themselves and their community.